Welcome to today's Destination Unknown. Today's video is a little bit different than what we've been doing so far, but it would apply to not just the tarot discipline, which we've been focusing on a lot here of late, but it belongs to any form of metaphysical study. And today's subject is trusting the psychic voice, the intuitive inner voice. The first thing that I want to make clear is that I am in no way presenting myself as a guru or in any way someone who is acknowledged and enlightened and is here to teach you the path that you can follow as well. And if anyone ever does say those words to you, of course, you're much smarter than that and you know not to fall for it. There is no easy path and there is no easy answer. And even for someone who is a lifelong practitioner such as myself, the first thing that I wanted to talk about today was the fact that I had a profound loss of faith in my late 40s, just recently, in the last 5 years. And it's something I've been coming back to. So my studies here are a way for me to have a renaissance and a rebirth into the person that I was in the past, but it also has forced me to critically examine all of my beliefs, spiritual beliefs as well as metaphysical beliefs. And so because of that, I wanted to make clear from the beginning that I am not here in this channel or anywhere else. That's not Destination Unknown. That's not my style, and that's not what I want this channel to be about. This channel is about exploration and a mindful exploration of the metaphysical realm and the different studies that go with it in different cultures and different awareness and different religions and different practices. That to me is much more interesting, certainly more than the cult of personality. If there's one person saying that they can lead you to the way of your inner knowledge and unlock your own keys of inner wisdom. That doesn't happen. That being said, I will say that I have found commonalities that exist in different religions and different beliefs, different cultures and different eras. And to me, that's interesting sociologically, because when we begin to see those cultures overlap, and where the ideas begin to dovetail and fit together, that to me is fascinating. There's something about a universal truth, if you will, that people have uncovered. And because of that reason, I've always wanted to get myself out there to find out more religions, more realities, more points of view than simply my own. So these commonalities, what can I offer you when it comes to learning how to trust your own intuitive voice? It's not going to be, for most of us, some grand voice booming inside your head. This means fill in the blank, whatever the card that you're looking at, whatever the palm you're looking at. It doesn't happen to me that way. And most people that I know who consider themselves to be highly intuitive do not describe their process that way. But every process is different. Every gift expresses itself slightly differently. I think one of the best expressions of intuitive awareness that I ever came across came from actually John Edward, the spiritual medium. Happened to catch him way back in the 90s when he was touring. And he talked about the ability to have a psychic connection or intuitive awareness was a gift that every single one of us has. And he likened it to the idea of singing. He said, every single one of us can sing. And immediately certain people in the crowd will balk at that. No, I cannot sing. That's so not true. That's not actually true. Every human being on the planet has the ability to open their mouth, make a sound, and attempt to sing in their fashion. We have that ability, whether or not it's on key, sounds good, all of that. That's another story. I liked what he said about that, and I do carry that forward for myself, so I offer it here as well. It's a lot like singing. Some of us have a gift and we're born with it and it comes natural. Some of us don't have much of a gift, but we study and we apply ourselves to a certain format and knowledge in order to develop it. And some of us have both. We're born with a gift, we develop that gift, and we give it a lot of attention and focus off and on in our life. And with that, our craft increases. We know that. So that's the first thing that I would offer. There's no easy path. It's a path you're going to continue to take lifelong. And it doesn't always get easier. You may find yourself decades on down the line hitting a complete crisis of faith and not having belief in anything left, and having to find out what does it mean to rebuild from that if you choose to rebuild a faith again. That's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Intuitive awareness doesn't happen overnight. When I was a young meditator, I wanted to have the doors of my mind open. I wanted my perception, the doors of perception, Aldous Huxley, all of these kinds of different alternative awareness theories, so fascinating to me. And I definitely wanted to receive it like a gift, like it would just come to me, like I would finally pierce that veil, as they say, and see and understand what it means to be really intuitive, really a psychic. You can see me shaking my hands with emphasis. That was kind of the mental interior that I had, and I began meditating. So there are certain commonalities, like I said at the top, and meditation is definitely one of those. Meditation is a process where you are going to actually change your brain. Brain waves in meditation do change. We know this. When I was younger, I went through biofeedback therapy, and they taught me about brain waves, the waves themselves, which are the electrical impulses of the brain, which are then mapped and monitored, and the cycles per minute are how they measure the length of the wave, whether they are long and tall and slow, or much faster and closer to each other. And that there are alpha waves. There are 5 different types of waves. I made sure to look at the science to get it right for you. So there are 5 different types of brain wave types that we see. And when we are in our normal waking awareness where we are outwardly focused, that is a beta wave, is what the scientists have called it. But the alpha wave is the next one going towards the spectrum of relaxation. So it shows a waking state, but one that's approaching a relaxation state. And it shows a calmness. It will definitely coincide with physiological changes, such as your heartbeat slowing, your breath becoming deeper and centered in your body. We can mimic all of these changes simply by mindfully putting our awareness to it through the process of meditation. Prayer is a form of meditation. So you don't have to sit down and adopt another philosophy or another practice or style if that is not in keeping with what your path is asking of you. You can simply spend time in that meditative, quiet space, which will then begin to shift your awareness. See what comes to you when you're in that state. Opening yourself, finding, when am I in it, Alyssa? How do I know if I'm not in biofeedback therapy like you just told me about? You do feel different. And people who meditate regularly talk about there's a transition point where you're just sitting there and you're bored and you're thinking about things and you're trying not to think about things. And I'm closing my eyes to show you how I close my eyes in my meditation. And finally, you just keep breathing, centering on the breath. There are certain mindful awareness meditations that you can get to kind of close down that dialogue that's happening in the mind. And then when you open your mind back up to a dialogue that comes from a different place, this is where a lot of people find the intuitive voice. It seems to come from a different place within them, or it seems to come almost through them, is another way that people have described the way that the feeling of the thoughts that come to you at that time. And I encourage you in a meditative state to pose questions to yourself. You can pose them to your higher self. You might pose them to your guides, your angels, your spirit guides, whatever makes sense to you, wherever your frame is. It can be fascinating to get to that very quiet space and then to begin to have a question and answer session with your higher self or with your quieter mind and find out what you see there, what is different. So meditation is a commonality. The other commonality that I definitely wanted to talk about is symbolism. Symbolism really, when you think about it, is the essence of all divination, all forms of divination, and divination meaning to communicate with the divine. We think of divination often being fortune telling or future casting, which is also true when used that way, but it can also definitely be a dialogue between yourself and the divine force. However, you may believe or not believe in a divine force. Divination, the idea that we are speaking to this level of awareness within ourselves or externally on another plane, whatever your belief system is. Symbols are what we use to try to communicate the messages that come from this other side, that come from these deeper recesses of our mind. Symbols are going to be completely unique to each person. That's another reason why nobody should try to teach you what your symbols are. And essentially the reason why I start our videos for Best Beginning Tarot Practices telling you don't read the books, don't listen to me telling you what the cards are about. Take the time to form your symbols first. Write them down, journal them, keep track of them, start that dialogue, because that's your symbolism. That is how your soul is speaking to you and trying to get those messages from a deeper awareness to a more conscious awareness that we inhabit on a day-to-day basis. So definitely think about your symbols and what you use. Symbols are everywhere. When we talk about divination, runes are completely symbols. The I Ching is made of symbols. Tarot in it of itself was once likened by another reader and practitioner to basically divination with training wheels, meaning that you had a prescribed set of what these cards mean, and you don't have to build your own symbols. We'll give you what the symbols are if you want to study them, and then you can just kind of cheat and get right to the divination by getting right to the symbols. And so that's an interesting way of thinking of it. I always thought that was such a fascinating idea, because when you really begin to break it down, all forms of inner awareness speak through symbols. That means all metaphysical paths will speak through symbols. And those are going to be individual. We might have some that we share, but because they're built on our culture, our religion, our ethnicity, our family dynamics, all of these things that make us the individuals that we are also make up the inner awareness of our symbolic world. And so that's how your intuition is going to speak with you the most strongly. So get familiar with what your symbols are. Solidify your symbols. How can you do that? Journaling. Always a good one. You know me. Journaling is a great process of kind of recording and then having a way to verify. Because that outside verification is kind of the third step here. We go inward with meditation. We look for the symbols that we might find there for the messages that were being communicated. But how do we know if it's true? How do we know if it's real? How do we have that? By verification from the outside. When you're only reading for yourself and to yourself, that is going to have its own very different form of verification. And if you journal things, you might have things come back to you later that you forgot about that were predictive or were somewhat in a reading and you didn't see it the first time. You had to have that hindsight in order to see it. That's definitely an important part for journaling. More than anything, capture your world first. Don't stay here with me if it's time for you to spend time inside yourself. Intuitive awareness will not come to you from the outside world. There's no teacher in the world, certainly not me, who's going to be able to open those doors of awareness within you. You can. It happens. Speaking for myself, my intuitive voice is very different. It can get very synergetic, is that the word? When the synesthesia, when the senses, I will taste how something feels emotionally. The symbols become very sensual in the fact that they're the senses, what I'm smelling and what does this smell represent. Smelling warm cookies might represent home and safety. Things like that will come to me in a reading, and it's not a literal smell in my physical realm. It's like when you're dreaming and you hear someone in your dream, but you're not hearing them with your ears. You're not smelling them with your nose and your flowers in your dreams. That same awareness is what you're talking about. So definitely take the time to look at your own inner world and spend that there. Leave this channel completely if you haven't done the inner work yet, or if you just want to pause. I encourage that completely. And definitely listen to your own inner wisdom, but above and beyond and before anybody else, measure everything you're given with a healthy dose of skepticism. Weigh it against yourself. Does it ring true? If it does, then you can consider whether or not it's worth your belief. Thanks for joining me today, and you go forward and conquer, I will too. Let's keep listening.